Version 3.18 puts the Star Citizen flight model in a very special place. Control services are coming, and it's important that the ships have a good baseline for when they come online. Ships need enough lift across the various services to make them stable and controllable, and this is something that is not yet properly set up for a lot of ships. This is an area where we see lots of potential going forward, and I wanted to highlight a few ships that see very different styles. The Kruger P-72 has always been incredibly stable. She flies like a proper rocket with lots of lift, but because the rotational power was super low, she was mostly uncontrollable and could only fly in straight lines. With version 3.18, we see an increase in rotational strength for this ship, which means that she'll actually pitch and we can really test her out. The awesome thing about this ship is that you can fly her with main thrust only and let the lift of the ship carry you just like a real airplane. There is no vertical thrust input required to stay airborne, and she flies incredibly stable like a super fast fighter jet. She'll do just over Mach 1 at near Earth-like sea levels, which is right on the money in terms of top speed. She does have some awesome limitations though. This ship truly feels like she's balanced really well. She won't roll super fast, so you need to think ahead just like you would in a fighter jet. It takes time to roll, and you can practically forget about yawing because that rotational power is super limited. She'll just buck like crazy and turn nowhere at all. What's really cool about the amount of lift this ship has is that the faster you go, the more lift and thus quote-unquote grip you have through a turn. Just like a Formula 1 car, you can only stay on rails if you keep up your speed. As long as you maintain that speed, you can turn super fast. But as soon as you slow down and lose the airflow and lift, you gotta transition to boost power to maintain agile maneuverability. This becomes super clear as you take her through this super tight slalom. You approach super fast and lean on that airflow on entry, and then transition to boost as soon as you slow down. The agility just feels perfect, where doing this corkscrew around the metro loop demonstrates that if you keep the nose pointing near TVI, she is incredibly stable, but will buck and dip a wing as you stall out when you get too aggressive on the pitch and cut too harshly into the airflow. Riding a turn fast feels incredibly awesome and often introduces the human body as the limiting factor as you ride the edge of the G-force limit. You know the ship can do more and tighten up, but the body won't allow it, and I think this is an incredibly cool problem to have. I can't hammer on the fact enough that the P-72 just feels incredibly well balanced. I am hoping that when control services are brought online that we can expect more like this, with lots of lift and control services taking over this level of rotational power and maneuverability from the thrusters at high speeds. I do want to mention as well the other side of the coin, because there is something incredibly special about taking a razor around the same track and slapping the ass out as you drift around turns. The razor requires an entirely different approach to flight because the lift is much lower and thus allows for a lot more drifting and rotational capacity. This does mean that it won't actually fly level without vertical strafing input, and that's an interesting problem that I'm curious about how CIG will solve. The razor requires that you overturn, which is not possible with something like a P-72. By overturning, you kind of tell the ship to go where you are pointing in a few moments' time as the TVI and drift catch up to the direction you're facing. Both of these flight models are incredibly special, and I would obviously hate to lose what the razor does right now. So I'm hoping that CIG manages to find a balance between these two and lets them coexist somehow. It's a really interesting and challenging problem for them to fix, but one I am super excited about. I cannot wait to experience what exciting things they have for us when control services are finally brought online.